Welcome back to Tuesday Tips. How would you like to play a little Jeopardy? At our business networking group, it was my opportunity to do my 10-minute presentation. So I get to talk about our business and what we do as patient advocates and as nurses. And so one of the categories was legal. And that really was the topic of my conversation and with you this evening is that we are getting ready to roll out season 2 of our podcast, advocating um, healthcare redefined, advocating for aging adults and their families. And so one of the themes that I was talking about during my presentation today before we started playing Jeopardy was a lot of people don't know when to contact a nurse advocate. How do you know when to use one? How do you know if you need one? And what can we do that maybe you can't do for yourself? And it's very hard for us to explain because a lot of it is you as a consumer, as a layperson, you don't know what you don't know. So oftentimes you don't know what you're missing. So you don't know when to reach out to us. And so during our Jeopardy game, what the whole point was is to share the game with we have over 30 people in our business networking group, and to share that game with them, to ask the questions, what if this, what if that, and to see how many answers they knew. And people were very surprised that they didn't know more answers than they did. And again, it only goes to show that it's hard. Our healthcare system is so complex that it's often, unless you are have the inside track or you're experienced in our healthcare system, oftentimes you don't know what you don't know and you can't read between the lines. So we're going to play a little bit in the category 5, which was legal and decision making. And the reason why I bring that up is because our season 2 of our podcast is focused on getting your affairs in order. We have two estate planning attorneys that we're going to be sharing a conversation with. We have a financial planner who's going to be sharing things on how does a senior, prepare for the future after retirement. We have a Medicare advisor who's going to talk about how do you choose a Medicare plan? How do you choose Medicare insurance? We have many other professionals that we are excited to share. And Linda and I are also going to wrap up our conversation as the first episode of the second season, episode 201, is going to be wrapping up on the end of season 1. And that was, can I go home from the hospital? Is it, can I go? And so what we didn't focus on with the social worker in our episode 12 is we're going to focus on what is AMA. If you've heard the term, oh, they left the hospital AMA. What does that mean? That's against medical advice. And the other thing is what if you feel if you're being discharged from the hospital too soon? Maybe you don't feel like you're well enough to go home. What do those two scenarios look like? And so that's going to be the very first episode. And we're looking at releasing in the next week or two. So stay tuned for the release date of season 2, and it'll be another 12 episodes. And we have a lot of good conversations coming up. But let's go ahead and let's look at category 5, legal and decision making. The number one, the $100 question or the $100 answer was, signing this does not automatically mean you can talk to every doctor tomorrow. Signing this does not automatically mean you can talk to every doctor tomorrow. So again, think about, I just, had repeated that phrase. So think about that for a minute. How would you answer that? Okay, I've given you a minute to think. The question is, what is healthcare power of attorney or HIPAA authorization? So what it's meant by even though that you are maybe indicated as someone's healthcare power of attorney, I'm my husband's healthcare power of attorney. As long as he is deemed competent and can make his own healthcare decisions, my name on that piece of paper really doesn't mean anything. It might mean something to the clinic that they would feel comfortable talking to me because I've been identified as someone who would be involved in the decision making, but it doesn't give me any authority at all to make any healthcare decisions on the behalf of my husband. That healthcare power of attorney or advanced directives, that must be activated before the people listed in the order. So the person listed in the number 1 spot, if your loved one is unable to make healthcare decisions, they've been deemed incompetent by 2 healthcare providers, or maybe they go into the hospital and they're unconscious and they are unable to make the decisions. The doctors can activate the power of attorney, and then they're going to go to that number one person on the list to make the decisions. And number two and three on the list is only going to be looked to for decision making if the person in the position in front of them is not able to make those decisions. So it's a lot more complicated than what people think. And you'd be surprised how many people we run across that say, "Oh, I'm my mom's healthcare power of attorney. I'm making decisions for her." Well, unless the two doctors have said that she's no longer capable, you really don't have that power or that authority. So just that was our $100 question. Now, our $200 answer was the trick question. The legal document may be signed, but it might not be turned on yet. What is the question that we're looking for? And again, just like we were talking about, the answer we're looking for is what is a healthcare power of attorney or advanced directive that has been activated? And when you say that that advanced directive has been activated, that tells the people in the healthcare system that two doctors have already filled out and signed forms stating that your aging loved one is no longer competent. So that's a big deal. If your aging loved one has an activated power of attorney, they better be calling if there's questions about if they're in a nursing home or an assisted living and something comes up, they better be calling the healthcare power of attorney for decision making and not just the patient. And we have a great example of that. We have a client, we've had him quite a while. His sister is his healthcare power of attorney. She lives out of state. She lives far away from where he's located, and we manage his care. And he fell, hit his head. They didn't send him to the hospital to be evaluated. They asked him, "Oh, do you want to go to the hospital?" Well, he has a history of traumatic brain injury, and his power of attorney is activated because he can't make rational decisions based on his health care. So they listened to him. He fell again, took him to the hospital, and he had from the fall, he had a brain bleed. And so a lot of complications, a lot of things arose from that, but they did not follow proper procedure by contacting that healthcare power of attorney. So that is a whole nother story in the legal category that we're not going to go into for this Tuesday tips. The $300 answer was this must ask a question. This must ask question is so you don't find out too late. And the correct question is, what is the healthcare power of attorney effective immediately or only upon incapacity? And what proof is required to activate it? And like we said, those two doctors have to sign a form stating that upon their evaluation, they have deemed that this person is no longer competent to make healthcare decisions on their own behalf. So the $400 answer was the reason hospitals still might not let you make decisions, even if you're the daughter. And that gets a little bit more complicated. And that is, what is the next of kin? Next of kin is not the same as a legal decision maker without the right documents. So a state can be a next of kin state, or it cannot be a next of kin state. The state we live in, Wisconsin, is a not of next of kin state, and we'll get into that in a minute. But adjacent to us, like Minnesota and south of us, Illinois, they are next of kin states. And what does that mean and what's the difference? That means that they will, even when there's no legal documentation in place, they will consult family members to help make prudent healthcare decisions. But here's where we could get into trouble in that instance when there's no documents in place, even if it is a next of kin state and they can talk to the family. What happens if you have an aging parent that has a fragile, serious healthcare condition, and the decision needs to be made to provide comfort measures or just keep them comfortable, let nature take their course, or real aggressive medical treatment that may or may not benefit them? What if you have siblings and family members on both sides of that fence? What happens if half of them are saying, no, we want everything done, and the other half is saying, no, mom wouldn't want that. You know, just let nature take its course, be supportive, make sure she's not in any pain or any discomfort. Well, now the doctors don't have any direction because they have a split family. So what might end up in this case is the social worker, the discharge planner may have to file a petition with the courts for a guardianship hearing. That means the court is going to appoint a corporate guardian. Sometimes they'll appoint a family member, but in this case, with everybody's arguing, they may just choose to appoint a professional, um, corporate guardian. So now you have a stranger that's going to be making healthcare decisions for your aging loved one. So even if you are in a next of kin state where they will listen to family, regardless if there's an advance directive or a healthcare power of attorney in place, you can still see the benefits of having one. So we always tell everyone this is the first thing, hands down. If you're just getting started in caring for an aging loved one, whether it's a parent, a grandparent, a mother-in-law, father-in-law, make sure that their wishes on how they want things to go when they can no longer make decisions on their own. What do they want? How do they want it to go? So, you know, most family caregivers, they're not failing as caregivers. So I don't want to give the message that you can't do it on your own. You certainly can. And we've worked with many families that have been successful in managing the care and maybe just with a question or two. So I'm not saying that at all, but oftentimes they're missing information that they were never taught. These are the gotchas, so to speak, that create crises. Oh my gosh, I wish I would have known that. And I hear that a lot when we talk with people say, oh, where were you a year ago when I needed? I had to learn everything the hard way. But our job is to help families get clear, organized, and confident before the next emergency. So this is, basically what our Tuesday tips was about today is just getting you thinking about taking those first steps in preparing, getting your affairs in order. And that would be the first step is get those advance directives, start the conversation. It may take several conversations for your aging loved one to be able to fine tune and get the decisions that they want and discuss it so that they're willing to put that in writing. But now's the time, sooner than later, it's time to start the conversation. And it doesn't have to be this heavy conversation, maybe just a couple sentences. Hey, Ma, hey, Dad, have you thought, as you're getting older, I know this isn't something we need, hopefully we don't need tomorrow, but we need to start getting some plans in place. And a really good way to approach that is we interviewed, about 5 years ago when we started our business, we were interviewing adult children of aging parents. And we were asking them, what are their biggest fears to take care of their aging loved ones? And one of them was actually my daughter. And she's, 45, and she was saying things like, her biggest fear was, I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong decisions. And that really ties into what we're talking about tonight is if your family, if your aging loved one has their wishes written down, that takes away that fear of making a wrong decision. It takes away the argument of siblings or other family members. And all that you have to agree on is to agree that we need to follow mom or dad's or grandma or grandpa's or aunts or uncle's wishes. And that's it. So even if their wishes don't align with your beliefs, everybody can agree that maybe you don't agree with the choice that they're making, but it's our job to make sure that their wishes are followed through on. So with that being said, stay tuned for season 2. We'll see you back here for another Tuesday Tips. Take care and have a good day.